असतोमा सद्गमय तमसोमा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योन्मान अमृतम गमय
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
From ignorance, lead me to truth. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to immortality.
Welcome to EtherWire podcast. I'm Jyoti Rai. I'm joined by a very special co-host, Santosh Sirur. Today is a special episode under the Wisdom Project 108 podcast series. Joining us today is a very special guest, a person who is none less than extraordinary. Let me tell you a brief story as a part of the research to bring pearl of wisdom, to get you some pearl of wisdom. In this process, I think I went back 200 BC, and in that timeline, I happened to meet Acharya Chanakya. I told him, "What are you doing here? We need you back there. The country needs, the citizens need you, the world needs you, and we have tons of questions for you to answer." He spoke Gandhari, Sanskrit. There was no translator, but he wrote a note that I can't come with you, but if you have Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai amongst us, I don't need to come with you. And that's the note I am carrying, and I have called Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai.
Thank you.
We call messenger of God. There's a messenger of Chanakya amongst us. Welcome to Wisdom Project, sir. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Santosh. You know, you mentioned about Chanakya. It's not just about going back in time. It's reinventing time for our generation.
Wonderful.
And thank you for making me part of this wonderful series that you're doing. I love the word 108. The number is so close to my heart. I stay in a flat, as I told you, 801.
Okay.
Interesting.
And 108 is such a divine number. Thank you for making me part of this journey.
So, such a pleasure. In fact, we know about you from decade. I think you are one synonym which is there with Chanakya. This episode, this series that we have started to put out, the Wisdom Project, basically we both realized that Jyoti, इतने सारे knowledge building का फायदा क्या if we don't teach or share with our audiences what is the right way of thinking? How do we even process this information? And we felt it'll be useless exercise of building so much if we can't fix the thinking. And look at that, encyclopedia only had one name, which was your name.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, once again, wonderful to have you. It's
Thank
a
you.
dream come true. And with you, we want to explore the depth and the efforts of Chanakya in his times. And you have played a very important role in keeping this alive. A philosophy, the insight which I think India literally lost for quite some time. And I think you also gave it a very fresh breath of life and treatment. We have a lot to talk about with you, but let's start with Santosh's question.
So, Dr. Pillai, give us some insights into how big was the panorama of Chanakya's capabilities and the legacy he has left behind.
Yeah, thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Santosh. You know, it's important to understand the context in which Chanakya was to understand his thought.
Yeah.
So as you rightly pointed out, you go back 2000, 2400 years behind, and you see the area that he operated geographically was Patliputra, which is modern day Patna in Bihar. And if you just read up some, stories about him, there's some, folklore which says he came from South India, Kerala, and I get
You're from Kerala.
I mean, just that makes me happy. But his area was Patliputra.
Yeah.
Magad was the kingdom then, and he also went to Takshashila, the undivided India then, and today is Pakistan. And here he was born in Patliputra, maybe his parents originated or whatever, and then he went to Takshashila. That's where he was a student and a teacher. The Takshashila University, which is very famous even today, and then he comes back to Patliputra. Now, before you understand Chanakya's thought, you have to understand the philosophy that existed in his era then public narratives that used to happen. Like today, if you look at it, currently because of the elections happening, all narratives are around it. Chanakya would also come in there.
Yeah.
But before you get into the political science of Chanakya, the thought was more about three prominent philosophies of that generation. The word Hinduism wasn't there at that time. It was more like a Vedic culture or a Vedic philosophy. So prominently, he was a teacher of the Vedic philosophy, and the Arthashastra that he wrote had a big impact from the Vedic culture. But parallelly, there were two more, I would say, offshoots of Vedic culture, the Jainism and Buddhism. So think about, today's generation, that you are having many thoughts, including your thought. So coming back to the point, Chanakya's context was very much political, no doubt about it, economical.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of theories that we can go into when we study his treatise, the Arthashastra. But the philosophical mindset that he comes, and as you rightly pointed out, in that particular era, he realized there is theories about running a kingdom, about governance. But what was also challenging is that till that particular point of time, there was no foreign invasions in this particular country. Yeah, and he had to actually face the first foreign invasion, much before the colonial part and of course the Islamic invasion. But what is important to know is that he actually got the first challenge of being, I would say the country was challenged by Alexander then. So think about it, he was a scholar, he was a thought leader with all the philosophies around him, yet he had to practically practice what was in the books, and therefore the Chandragupta Maurya's creation, or what we today call the narrative of Akhanda Bharat. If you prominently look at it, he actually was responsible of creation of the Akhanda Bharat that we talk about, with Chandragupta Maurya as the king. And all the theories that he wrote, he practiced, and I also call him, my favorite definition about Chanakya, the father of Indian economics.
Wow. Wow. Now, speaking of economics, Arthashastra was not Chanakya's original work.
Sure.
He wrote this while he was studying in Takshila, and as the history says, and as your interviews that I learned from, that it is to apply the knowledge, he was called back to the kingdom to apply it. So my question to you is, we are living in times of AI, there's nothing original left, right? But your idea of originality and Chanakya's originality gave a very different dimension. So your insights on that and the application of the knowledge.
Jyoti, that's a wonderful question. It is said that there are no original thoughts. The universe has all the thoughts that you have in some era. I mean, it's an ego which says, it's my original thought. And the way we are looking at our generation, okay, you patent it, you copyright it, and say, okay, it's my original thought. I mean, that's a very, very, I would say, selfish way of looking at things. Yet, there is some originality involved, because, I guide a lot of PhD students, and when they write papers, I can tell exactly how much is cut, copy, paste, even before the chat GPT. But at the same time, I always tell my students, give references. Okay? So, stealing is not good, but if you say that everything I have written, I know you already started with the wrong discussion. In fact, I was guiding some defense officers with very senior position who are doing their PhD. And I was telling them, they're asking plagiarism. They're saying, originality is how you interpret it. And that's your original way of looking at it. But original thought may not be there. So coming back to Chanakya, in the generation of AI, okay, it's easy to gather all the information. Yet, you can have something called as NI, natural intelligence. So AI can be a support tool, but AI is only a tool which can help you to actually go back to NI. So Chanakya's Arthashastra, as you rightly pointed out, is not the original Arthashastra. There were at least 14 other Acharyas of Arthashastra before him, whom he quotes also in Kautilya's Arthashastra. But he has got insights and says, okay, this is relevant for my generation. To give a simple example, was Einstein the greatest scientist of all times? Or did Newton, discover gravity? The answer everybody knows is no. But we say that they discovered. So it's a natural law that they found out. It existed before then. So if gravity was there, it is not something that he invented. It was a discovery. So we can go back and say we had Indian rishis who discovered gravity. That's fine. But my question is that they made it prominent as a science which is relevant. So we should probably look at, maybe an Einstein or a Newton contributing to that field.
Yeah.
So Arthashastra, the science of politics, science of governance, science of leadership, it existed before Chanakya, but Chanakya made a prominent role in such a way of interpreting it for that generation, and that's his originality.
Right.
Probably the visibility is what he created for the world, right? Yeah.
Right.
And he became the face of Arthashastra.
Correct.
Right. No, there is always an element of a lot of teachers try to say their textbooks are same, but some teachers say it differently, explain it differently, and that makes all the difference in your.
And some teachers can complicate it also.
And can further, यार इतना simple चीज को complicate करके वो क्यों बता रहा है?
Dr. Pillai, I was very keen to know when it comes to the scale of how widely Arthashastra is globally accepted, its acceptance globally, and the interest, and especially in today's world where there's so much of geopolitics, there's so much of development, interrelation between countries. Where does this scale of the acceptance of Arthashastra lie around?
So it's a misnomer that ours is a globally connected generation. Because of technology, we think that what's happening in US is known here, etc., etc. But human race is always connected, which are part of the history globally. So let me give an example.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we think it's a globalized world.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, I would say, economic and trade related language. So maybe if you have a, let's say a phone, it could be thought about somewhere else, designed somewhere else, manufactured somewhere else, sold all over the world, and maybe after servicing is happening in some other place. So we see the activities globally.
Yeah.
But to say that we are the only generation which is globally connected is wrong. So I'll give you an example. Before technology or what we call today social media, were not people connected? Sure. Maybe their tools were different. The speed was different. Like
In absence of internet, imagine.
absolutely. Subhash Chandra Bose was a global citizen.
Yeah.
Right.
The Indian National Army that we call about INA was actually created out of India for India. So he goes to Germany, he goes to Singapore, he goes to Japan. So wasn't he global? Now coming back to the point, I'll give one more example. In Chanakya's generation, they were equal thought leaders across the globe and they were connected. Maybe at the ether level.
Ether level.
Because it's so important now, for example, the concept in Arthashastra of an ideal leader is called Raja Rishi. Now thoughts have their own, vibrations to reach other scholars of that field. And Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they were the thought leaders or leadership gurus in the Greek culture then.
Yeah.
Can you believe that Aristotle actually built on a thought called philosopher king?
Wow.
Now, there are two ways of looking at that. Either he got the thought from there or maybe we got the thought from there. But the reality is that today our ideal leader in the Western culture was also philosopher king, which we call Raja Rishi. Now, there are of course theories around it, which is called Rajamandala theory, where we have concepts like Dushman ka Dushman dost, enemy is a friend. Now this can go into technical details and we can chart strategy around it. But coming back to the point, in this generation or that generation or even future generations, you'll be surprised that Chanakya is relevant because it talks about not ancient wisdom but eternal wisdom.
Wow. Time to correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can correct. No, but wonderful. I think taking further from Santosh as well, I think from a global acceptance perspective, there are a lot of countries that have gone way beyond adapting certain philosophy, practicing and acknowledging it as principles. I heard Germany has been, quite vocal about utilizing, eternal wisdom from Indian Vedic literatures. I think what is that scale of countries adopting to our Vedic wisdom? So,
if you look at our generation, yoga, Ayurveda, even to a great extent astrology, has been now globally accepted. Some people voice it out, okay, they are very loud about it, but some countries are not, it's okay. But it's important to know that the wisdom of Chanakya is relevant a lot today. I'll give you a couple of examples. Chanakya is actually part of textbooks in Japan.
Wow.
It is not even in India. I remember meeting a Japanese scholar and he told me something very prominent, saying that Ashoka is a part of the culture.
Oh.
Textbook stories, the way we speak about Rabindranath Tagore or Shivaji in a school textbook, it's a part of the education curriculum in Japan.
Wow.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, of course Ashoka is more prominent, but they link it to Chanakya's teachings. And he was India's first global emperor. And he was the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya.
Yeah.
So many people don't even know this fact that we have this assumption that the country outside India which loves Sanskrit the most and very vocal about it is Germany. Are you aware of it? It is not true. It's actually Japan.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that Germany doesn't have a role. So you have the Max Mullers and many people. And Swami Vivekananda actually met Max Muller. But all that narratives is almost one part of the global narrative of Sanskrit. But Japanese scholars are so much into Sanskrit, and this has been told by the HOD, head of Department of Sanskrit Department of Mumbai University. They go for their global conferences.
Right.
So coming back, Chanakya. How prominent is Chanakya outside India? I can tell you. In fact, I read a book when I was doing my initial research. More than 25 foreign languages have Arthashastra translated into their local language.
Massive.
And it's not just Germany, it's also Italian languages, so many languages. Coming back, if you look at this one point, in the US Army, they teach Arthashastra. In the Pakistan Army, they teach Arthashastra. And Pakistan believes as a narrative, because Takshashila was there, it's ours, and there is a parliamentary discussion on this to own Chanakya. Why is India owning? I mean, it's okay, you can go on debating who owns it, because anyway it's a universal application and principle. So summing it up, I would say it's like yoga. It's a universal principles and law, maybe right from your asana, pranayam till samadhi. It may have originated in India, but it's called global
acceptance
relevance.
is global.
Absolutely. And there's so many scholars. I teach in so many Ivy League universities in the US. And I find this, they do more research than what we do. So global acceptance, yes, but some are vocal about it, some are not.
Okay,
Right.
that's interesting.
Right.
So what kind of lessons can we learn from Chanakya's childhood?
So again, all these are folklores.
And
one of my history professors told me, you can never actually go back and say this is the history. Because all about references, narratives. So I would talk about what is generally spoken in our generation about Chanakya. So born Patliputra. And what's the lessons? Number one, even if you are a born genius, you still require training. So there's this particular thing, okay, born genius, child prodigy, that's fine. So he or she has got it inbuilt in them, but still you require training. But Chanakya said that, even if you are a born leader, which I think most of us are, you require training of leadership. Chanakya was fortunate that he was a brilliant born genius. He was a polymath, multiple disciplines, but he was fortunate to be born in an ecosystem where his father also was teaching the same subject. So as the narrative goes, that his father's name was Acharya Chanak or Rishi Chanak. That's why we have this name Chanakya Putra Chanakya. His childhood completely out of Patliputra, but it seems that his father was against the that time king Dhanananda, and there's a public awakening, and he had to run away to Takshashila to save his life. His father was killed by Dhanananda, because an Acharya actually having a public outcry can actually dethrone the king. So all these are narratives, and then finally comes back and dethrones Dhanananda and makes Chandragupta Maurya. Lessons from Chanakya's childhood too. Number one, even if you have the advantage of being born in a teacher's family, you still have to be a good student.
Wonderful, beautiful.
Beautiful.
So we always think, right, the father is a teacher, so studious to hoga hi. It's a visibly accepted fact.
And the second lesson is that even if you are the brightest mind, never get into that ego of intellect. So we have narratives that I heard that he comes back and he helps his friends who are also Acharyas, because some of them may become teachers, some of them may not. So I think my greatest lesson is that you may have a humble beginning or a great beginning. Chanakya had a great beginning. He was a wonderful teacher as a father. Yet he was absolutely, I would say, a person who could never be understood, because he was not the glamour guy who can capture in a camera. It will be as simple as walking around in a dhoti, but his mind was sharp to understand, and he could change the world perspective towards India.
Wow. I believe what you are today, somewhere it gets decided from the impressions of your childhood, the experiences that you come your way, and what you do with that.
Yes.
In absence of your parents, some parents are, some kids I have seen raised by neighbors or grandparents, because parents both will, died. But coming back, what you are today, the clues lies in your childhood. I think we also want to know that, Chanakya had to leave, go to Takshila because his father had become activist, and which is where we wanted to understand. So, as a childhood well lived in circumstances like this, he came out still as a kingmaker.
Yeah.
Now that's a substantiate insights to have. A kingmaker is an advisor, is a philosopher, is a mentor, a coach. How could that have happened over his childhood when he was brought back to defeat Dhananand?
I'll give you one more perspective.
Yeah.
Chanakya was also a metallurgist.
Oh my God! How much and what all he did?
He was an architect. And when I say architect, not like architect of India, he actually knew the brick and mortars of how to construct a fort.
Wow.
So he could actually measure, this is the brick and mortar being used, this is the length of the road.
Would it be right to say very hands-on education?
Hands-on with a big picture. People who are hands-on sometimes can get into so much of micro,
Right.
they can lose the big picture.
Okay.
But people who are hands-on and with the big picture in mind, the vision that you want to create, are actually the best executors. Because micromanagers lose the big picture and they actually can confuse people.
Yeah.
Like I find, in a lot of organizations, where the top started with hands-off, but they don't like all this because now I'm the boss. So that's also a problem. So he was hands-on, but definitely he was
Not a
one who-
micromanager.
No, but you can't fool him because if somebody is a micromanager, he can catch.
Yeah. But
Right.
he had the vision also, the right
Absolutely.
long-term vision.
The
probably.
Sanskrit word for this is Dura Drishta. One who can see the future and make the future or create the future.
Right. We are speaking about art of thinking, and I tried one of the questions from your book, which was out there. It just blew up on your face that we didn't think about it, because I knew somewhere, even as a person, there was a challenge of communicating with folks because you felt different about the way you thought. ये कुछ अलग ही सोचती है, या you are tagged as उल्टा सोचती है या कुछ अलग ही सोचती है. My point was, there was a question that you said that when a air hostess invites you with smile, now you're going to take a flight. The air hostess is going to invite Radhakrishnan Pillai, hello Mr. Pillai, Dr. Pillai, come, welcome on board, have a good flight. And imagine Mr. Pillai wants to ask her how to have a good flight. I think that made all the difference. What is the significance of how to think and to fix the thinking in our lives?
So there's a word in English, it's called clairvoyance.
Clairvoyance.
So I remember as a childhood, you said about living the impressions of childhood. I have been very actively involved, and thanks to my parents, you talked about parenting. 80% of your upbringing is because of your parents and prominently the mother, then your teachers and your friends. Fortunately, when I was a child, as part of Chinmaya Mission, and when I actually became part of the youth wing called the Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, I actually attended a camp. Now summer season is going on, a summer camp, and the title was Clairvoyance. It's much before Chanakya. And they taught us how to think. And let me tell you that I was so shocked. How to think? I have thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very
you require
natural,
training in
yeah.
that.
To think, yeah.
But then you have friends going, you have some prominent teacher and your parents push you. I came back and I realized one thing, that we are not trained to think.
Yes.
For us, unfortunately, the education system also has become an examination system. It's all about memory skills.
Yeah.
So there's this joke by Swami Chinmayananji, before the exams I'm wise. I remember everything. After the exams I'm wise. I remember everything. But during the exams otherwise.
Good one.
Yeah, totally.
So coming back, is thinking something that can be trained? The answer is yes. I can tell you, a lot of people think just because I have thoughts I'm a thinker. No. It's like, your wardrobe is full of clothes. But you choose which to wear and which not to wear. Can you have thoughts that you can choose to work on? Thoughts that are not required, and thoughts that you don't entertain, and thoughts that you delete. My father used to always tell me, he had a prominent influence in my thinking, saying that 3 people in the society are so prominent for the change that we bring, but we don't understand them. One is the monk sitting in a cave. So what he does is sitting with the closed eyes, but he's doing the greatest service to mankind. Second is a scientist in the laboratory, and the third is a scholar in the library.
Wow.
You can't see their outputs prominently, but they are thinking jobs. And Chanakya actually taught us how to think.
Right.
So let me give a simple example, that thinking is many times considered as worrying. And Hindi में कहे तो कैसे, चिंतन करो, चिंता मत करो. But nobody has trained you in thinking. I've been fortunate. Clairvoyance, that clarity comes in, and then when you act it. And of course, we have some basic lessons or thoughts think before you do.
Yeah.
Or as the tailor's principle, measure twice before you cut.
Totally.
But that's just phrases.
Yeah.
Chanakya had a whole subject on how to think, and that's called Anvikshiki.
Totally, totally. No, in fact, because this book would have been missed by me, very frankly, provided if I had not been a meditator. Because consciousness, mindfulness helps you anchor those thoughts, and for me, reading your book was like, wow, I got the framework, I got the approach, the map, to fix it. Besides that, my son also was not a conventional learner. So I had to put him into a framework of how to think, because he used to think, he used to be a gazer, stargazer, endlessly thinking, okay, but intelligent guy. He would gaze for 4 hours, he will come back and he will play some Mozart or Beethoven out of, the old English classic, which usually don't come in your muscle memory, naturally. So when I noticed these things and I realized this book is so potent with what you have brought out, it's like putting out Chanakya's brain. Look, this is how to do it. Thinking is a very critical foundation setting for our lives.
Yeah.
As you heard Dr. Pillai, we think sochna is thinking. Busy hu, I'm stressed is thinking. No. We think thinking is binary, positive or negative. But I guess we missed the very important point which Dr. Pillai brought it out. Thinking realistic. Let's deep dive a little more on the 3 sides of thinking: positive, negative and realistic, right? We are tuned to think अच्छा सोचा करो, अच्छा बोला करो, which is good to have, right? Positive and think. Negative नहीं सोचना है. किसी ने नहीं सिखाया realistic कैसे सोचते हैं. Maybe I think that's what you tried to pin through your book. Did you think that you have pinned it? Like, yes, this is how it's.
So after 22 books, it's still working.
It's still work in progress. Okay.
So we know that's practically working. So one is your own world of thoughts, but there comes your world of thoughts, our world of thoughts, and a world where there are no thoughts.
Right.
Maybe we are living in illusions.
Yeah.
Now when you told about your son, please understand, how can we judge somebody's thoughts as right or wrong based on our parameters?
Absolutely.
And that's what I feel in India. We like to put everybody into one box.
Right.
And say a good student means 98%.
Right.
98% also doesn't have a relevance.
Yeah.
Totally. These educational yardsticks I couldn't have used for my child, right? Besides that, I remember, besides reading your book, there was something which very important happened in my life, was watching the series of Suresh Oberoi with Sister Shivani on the journey of souls.
Okay.
It's art of living, but not art of living. It's something to do with journey of souls.
Okay.
And when you look at someone at a soul level, it says that you will just drop your judgments, because soul is traveler, just like you. What will you judge? That itself requires a bent of mind to process these thoughts like this.
Since we spoke about the young minds, like she mentioned about her son, right? A very important in today's generation is the social media, right? Everything is Insta, right? Next minute I need success. It goes without saying that efforts are not even thought of, right? So my question to you is, these social media influences are thinking a lot, right? Why do these netizens, the Twitterati or all these guys who are on the internet, need to be careful with what they watch and what they follow? Because a lot of times, right, the feed that comes into your social media kind of builds on your thought process, and you kind of get completely mesmerized, and it kind of channels your thoughts towards it. So I'm sure your viewpoint is one needs to be careful, because what kind of feed is coming into your social media is influencing your thought process. So what's your view on that, Dr.
So
Pillai?
before I answer this question, I like to look over this word that you asked, young minds. It is not young minds or old minds, it is immature minds.
Okay, that's
because
interesting.
there is no connect of age and maturity.
Yeah.
I found people at 70, 80 also immature. And I've seen young boys or girls absolutely mature and genius. Like for example, in our Guru Sishya Parampara, a Shankaracharya or a Vivekananda, or you go back to even Gyaneshwar, in our Maharashtrian Sampradaya,
correct,
they're all young boys, but the minds
mature,
very mature. And where do you get this maturity from? For us, that's a very spiritual quality. And if you have to quote Marathi, which is one language that you speak, मोठ्या झाल्यानंतर तुम्ही शहाणे नाही होऊ शकत, पण शहाण्या झाल्यानंतर तुम्ही मोठे होणार.
Wow.
Beautiful.
So age and maturity has no guarantee, and therefore the wisdom of your past births can also come. Now coming back to the point about technology, and especially you said about the instant gratification. There are a lot of psychologists who work around it. So it's not that we are getting addicted. I mean, the people who create it want you to get addicted. There's a very famous quote of Netflix saying that our biggest enemy, our biggest competitors is a human sleep.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it is not about who shows better films.
Yeah.
Can you watch it more than the others? And what they're doing, there are brain scientists involved. And I work with so many brain scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists. They tell me that it's created. Like I'll give a simple example. If you want to attract a child, okay. Now what are the things that can attract a child? They classify the child. Okay, they are fascinated by bright colors. Okay. Now next step. If you go to any movie, okay. If you see the subtitles, where are they? Why not here? Who decided that? It's a brain scientist who tells. The same subtitles can be at the top, you have space. It's not on the right, it's not like this, it's here only. And they also measure how much time you will read, which language. And okay, now go back. The colors are decided by somebody, the font size is decided by somebody. In fact, that extent that has happened is that that people don't even know that you've been used. I say it's okay, use technology, but don't get used by technology. In fact, there's a Chanakya solution to this also.
Is it?
Yeah, in fact, I've written another book for children called Chatur Chanakya. It's a series I'm writing. We are tied up for 35 books. It's like a character called Chatur Chanakya who helps the young minds in your language, the immature minds, to actually get not used by technology, but use technology. The first series was called Chatur Chanakya versus the Himalayan problem.
Oh.
So there's a case that we took bullying. I'm sure every parent is worried about. So we had a Chanakya solution for it. In a school, the biggest problem is bullying. Now the new generation, it's cyberbullying. So actually the second book of that series for children, remember, it's called Chatur Chanakya versus the World Wide Web.
Wow.
And there's a girl who actually, the character of the girl gets cyberbullied by somebody who don't even know. So you don't have to have a physical bully today. Cyber crimes is on a rise. Cyberbullying is a reality. How do you tackle it? We have a Chanakya solution to it. Now coming back, because it is becoming like a mass movement, everybody says if I'm not on internet, or if I'm not on Insta, or if I'm not on LinkedIn, if I'm not on YouTube, then I'm not relevant. But the point is that, yes, use all these tools, but can you put a break to it if required? Like, right now we're doing a shooting, we have kept our mobiles away.
Correct.
At this point, consciously, we are not addicted to FOMO. Fear of missing out. But you always say, this is more important, prominent, priority is this. Let's do it, and then first thing you'll pick up is your mobile.
Absolutely. Let us see what's
coming back. Technology of instant information and instant messaging can become an addiction because that's how they are crafted it by choice. They get the revenue from there.
Correct.
But the question, that's okay. I mean, if somebody is giving fantastic service, they're all free, and maybe on me they make money. As they said, if you don't pay them, you are at least giving the time for which they are getting paid. So use the technology. I think it's fantastic. Our generation is lucky. What's happening anywhere in the world, it's known to you in real time. But at the same time, you should know that it can have a mental problem. Mental health is a growing problem globally. In fact, I know so many states in US, they've gone legal against these companies. They say, we can't do this because it's creating problems for children, youth. So what I'm saying is that there's an Indian solution to this global psychological problem also.
Interesting. I also have this question, we talk of politicians, right? And we know of certain politicians, of course I'm not to name them, but I'm sure our audiences will know. We talk about the Chanakya Niti, and we know they are the best when it comes to Chanakya Niti, because they know, what's that extra bit in them that you feel, is where that Chanakya Niti plays around?
Good. Again, beginning the question, politicians, unfortunately in our generation, the first impression is that
correct.
I mean,
mindset.
That's the kind of unfortunate politician that you've seen or come across, or that's the public narrative. Okay. Now coming back, if you look at academically, it is not politics; it's political science. So we give a scientific approach to politics also. And let me tell you, it requires a different caliber to be a politician.
Yeah.
And among politicians, there is one more level, the strategic politician.
Yeah. Okay.
Because politician is generally known as somebody who goes for elections, has a post. But what about the political guru? You know, in fact, one of my friends who was a politician told me something interesting.
Okay.
He said, politics में succeed होने के लिए 3 चीज की जरूरत है. The 3 things required. So what are the 3 things? Either you should have a father in politics, or you should have a guru in politics, or you should be a politician who can be a great manipulator.
Okay.
Then I said, okay, this is the word they use.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Father, or you have a god in politics, or you have a manipulating skills. I said, what? Here is the word we are talking about called strategy. And strategy and manipulation are totally different.
Totally different.
So coming back to the political part of Chanakya, of course, a lot of people misinterpret Chanakya. And they quote, Samadana Dandaveda. Who doesn't appreciate Chanakya? Why only politicians? We are appreciating him. But the thing is that the first thing, if you're using Chanakya strategies, is to question what's the purpose. And that's why Chanakya's biggest philosophy is Praja Sukhe Sukham Rajñam. So finally, as they say, who decides whether a good politician or a leader? It's the people.
Right.
I mean, finally, that's why in democracy also we have this every 5 years you get elected. Now coming back, the political scenario of number crunching is very different from number crunching for the development of a nation. And that's why good politicians should understand both. Of course, you require a seat to execute all that. So for me, summarizing the answer, the greatest political strategist close to Chanakya for me was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. 2 reasons for this. Number one, the Britishers, we have this great thought saying that, okay, divide and rule.
Yeah.
But Sardar Patel and Chanakya himself had the strategy of unite and rule.
Okay.
So there were 16 regional kingdoms during Chanakya's time. Alexander came, he united all of them. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel actually united India. We were, before the Britishers left, we were not a nation. We had 550 princely states.
Yeah.
So it required a Chanakya needed to bring them. And let me tell you, even they were good kings, princely states. If you look at Mysore Maharaja or Travancore Maharaja or Baroda, Sayaji, they were good. So it's not that you have to, they are bad leaders, they are happy, people are happy. But no, we require a big picture, we need to have a union of India. That's why the Statue of Unity. So anybody can be considered Chanakya because of the manipulation part of it. But election winning is only one part of it. So Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, according to me, was the greatest political Chanakya that we have seen in our lifetime.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Very interesting.
We are speaking about Chanakya, and every leader has filled up enough buckets of water through the wisdom it has left and through the books that you have written. My question is, we are meeting at a time where everything is different from what it used to be. And our parents है तो हमको हम लोग we talk about our parents with जो से कि हमारे टाइम पे बहुत अलग था, उनके लेवल का स्ट्रेस बहुत डिफरेंट था, हमारे लेवल का स्ट्रेस बहुत डिफरेंट है, मेरे बच्चे और उनके आगे के लेवल की डिस्ट्रैक्शंस बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. So everything is far more grandeur, whether it's stress, types of stress, or my question to you is, with this backdrop of complex world getting more complex, climate change, AI, and you always had a tip for leaders. Okay, what is your tip for 2024 and onward to survive and thrive in these times?
So first things first, every generation has to be different. So I read a very beautiful quote about generations. Never limit your wisdom to your children because they are born in a different era. Otherwise, it's always hamare zamane mein. I burned the midnight lamp. And then you go back.
The old school.
But please understand, it's important to give your wisdom. But don't think that your wisdom is relevant today. Maybe if they find the relevance, they'll take it. I'll give a simple example. If we had problems, they have different problems. Their struggles are different. They'll also struggle. We didn't have too much of mental problems, or at least what is categorized today as mental health problems. They have it. Okay. In fact, we say, okay, they are global, but they have different global problems. And so when we sit with these two generations, there will be a gap. But wisdom can bring the gap, together, or they can get it together. Come back to your question, what is the Chanakya solution for leaders? Number one, the current leaders don't understand the youth and how they think. Very few, you can actually count them on numbers. What are the laws that we are making? Okay, now if it's the biggest public debates for current generation,
Yeah.
okay, LGBT rights. I mean, okay, because that's the orthodox thought. I'm not saying right or wrong. Please understand. Again, my thought process could be different from the young generation. But the thing is that, have you realized that today you are working with a youth who doesn't have a concept of nation?
Yeah.
Nation is only a concept of the passport. You can be an Indian not having an Indian passport. Or maybe you're a second generation in USA, born there, but could be dedicated to your wisdom from India.
Correct.
Now the thing is that what the challenges the politicians should address? What about AI?
Yeah.
It's going to take up jobs. It is not going to take up, it has taken up.
Yeah, already.
So as Peter Drucker said very nicely, one of the foremost management and political thinkers, the future that has happened. Now the danger for most of the countries is that the old generation politicians don't even understand the narratives and the realities of the youth. Coming back to leadership tip from Chanakya, very important, very important. Make a young leader and let him be guided by a wise guru. Chandragupta was young. Unfortunately, old people want to become leaders, and leaders don't have gurus.
Yeah.
So I would say that with our so-called wisdom of the past, we should guide them. But youth only should be a leader. That's a Chanakya principle. And by the time the youth is selected, they are already becoming middle age.
Right.
The older you are inflexible. It happens with a lot of our habits,
Of course. Yeah.
The way we dress, the way we eat, the way we think, and it's not progressive. So many times, the so-called 50 plus, most of us who are in that generation feel it, that we think more about the past because we have a great past, but the youth only has a future.
Yeah. So they think it forward looking.
Absolutely. So
Right.
I think it's very important to have more young leaders guided by wise people with a lot of experience of a previous generation.
Wow, wow. So basically, you are hinting about bring the age of the organization, lower, right? And the old leaders should really make the way for the younger leaders. No, or they should. How should they go?
So a matured organization will have 3 generations.
Okay.
For example, let's take any organization which is more than 25 years.
Okay.
It could be corporate, it could be government. Let's take an example of an army, because I work with them. Now, if you look at an army officer, they're leaders. There are 3 generations of leaders in the same army at any given point of time.
Yeah.
For example, if you get into an army or a navy or air force through an NDA,
Yeah.
now at the age of 21, you're a commissioned leader. So you may have the badge and the appellate and the rank, but tell me one thing: do you have experience? Just because you could crack that competitive exam, now formally you're a leader. But the institution, the army knows that he's got a rank of leader, but he doesn't have an experience. Now look at another generation; they may be in the 30s to maybe 50s.
Yeah.
Now they say they are real leaders. But they're not bachas, they're old.
Yeah.
The energy level is still there. And there is a generation 50 to 60. They're still not formally retired.
Yeah.
You know what they do? They get the wisdom of all 3 generations together.
Yeah.
Because if you look at new age organizations like we said about AI,
Yeah.
you'll be surprised, they don't have people to guide them. I saw IT 20 years ago was an immature industry. Today people have retired, they're becoming mentoring the next generation. So I would say that any organization can have 3 generations. So the youngest generation should be trained to become leaders. 30 to 50 is actual leadership position. Where they have somebody to guide them, somebody below them to listen to them, but you are actually having the wisdom and the guidance from the top to be a leader.
Yeah.
And after becoming a leader, many people don't like to give the position.
Yeah, that's also.
That's also a big problem.
Right.
I am an eternal leader.
Yeah.
Why don't you become a leadership guru? So the 50s onwards should be mentors to the leaders and welcome.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful Upanishadic thought. Knowledge is always transferred from the grandparents to the grandchildren. Never from the parents to the children.
Yeah.
So that's why the grandparents are always the carriers of wisdom.
Yeah.
Parents will always have that attachment and the anger. They don't have time anyways.
Yeah.
So a good ecosystem has got all the 3 generations staying together. The best business families actually have 3 generations staying together because they don't learn business in the B school, not only in the offices but also by the wisdom of the grandparents who run the business in their generation, old school with a new idea.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
interesting. Yeah.
This is so fantastic. So if you feel you have missed the beat, it's because your parents did not pass on some knowledge to you. If you have daddy issues, probably it's coming because of the skipping of the knowledge that didn't got transferred. But in nutshell, I think this is a lot more to explore, discover through various shades of Chanakya. And of course, 1 episode, 2 episode, maybe 10 dozens won't help. The best thing about art of thinking is that it's certainly an art, but it's an art that everybody can do it. We all are artists. Stay tuned.